I'm really excited about our challenge this week because if we learn to recognize the signs that we need to recharge, we know what's causing the depletion of energy, and we know what to do about it to bring that energy back, all of a sudden you will start seeing success in your relationships, in your business, in your mindset. You'll see a difference in ways that you would not have imagined, because when we have energy, all of a sudden we interact differently with situations, with messages that are coming into our brain, with the way we respond physically. It changes everything. Making sure you have the energy that you need in order to do all the things you're trying to do with your business, your personal life, with your relationships. This is something that is really important. So today we're going to talk about recharging your energy. I'm going to go into two categories: our physical body and our mental capacity, because those kind of get depleted in different ways. So we're going to talk about the things that deplete our physical bodies and the things that deplete our mental capacity and what we can do about it. But first, what I want to do is I want to go through the signs. This is a way that you can recognize that you are depleted, that you need to be recharged. Because sometimes we're going along in life, we feel like we're just getting things done, everything seems fine, and we don't even realize that we need a recharge. And this is something I've learned in building my business, doing trainings all over the world, working with people individually all over the world. You will not be successful the way that you imagined. You're not going to see the results that you want if you do not figure out how to balance your life and have time to recharge, recognize when you need a recharge, and knowing what to do about it and making sure you take the time to recharge. So here are some signs that you are hitting the bottom, that you need a recharge. Number one, you're grumpy. You're irritated, you're critical, you find that you're annoyed with a lot of things. Obviously, we kind of get frustrated sometimes, and those things happen. But if you're finding that it's kind of consistent, or it's happening several times in a day, the way you're treating your employees, you realize you're not being the kind of boss that you want to be, and maybe it's time to recharge. The second indicator is a lack of motivation to do anything. Maybe you just kind of want to hang out on the couch. Maybe there's something that you want to do. You might even be excited to do it, but you're feeling like, you kind of keep avoiding it. You keep putting it off. If you are feeling like this is an indicator. The third thing is it starts to get hard to focus. Maybe you're busy doing the work that you need to do, or you're focusing on your kids, but you feel like you keep getting distracted. You kind of are, wanting to step away. You're not enjoying the moment, because sometimes focus isn't just about, oh, I can be in flow and I can be absolutely focused on what I'm doing. It's also the being able to enjoy it, being able to feel the joy and the excitement of what you're doing, instead of it feeling like a duty, like you just have to get it done. The fourth thing is your sleep patterns. If you start to notice that you're getting way too much sleep or way too little sleep, maybe you can't sleep, or you're having a hard time waking up, you've slept plenty long and you wake up and you feel super tired. It just doesn't feel like the sleep is giving to you what you need. The fifth thing is all of a sudden you start having unexplained health challenges. You start having maybe stomach aches or headaches, or you are starting to have some chronic health challenge that you weren't dealing with before. Sometimes you might even have a chronic health challenge that you kind of attribute to, well, I'm getting old, or well, it's because this is in my family. Don't just let it stay at that. Maybe that is why, but you know what? Maybe there's something you can do about it. Maybe it's because there's been this chronic lack of recharge, and your body is finally saying, you know what? I can't take it. This is a domino that's going to have to go down, because that's the way I can handle it. The sixth indicator is that you start using things like food, like alcohol, drugs, and you're using these to either give you energy, or sometimes it's the opposite extreme. You're using it to numb yourself because you just can't deal with life or reality, or you just feel like you need a break. Now let's go into the two categories. First, let's talk about our physical bodies. Why do we get physically drained? Like, what are things that we do that causes us to lose our energy, or to, number one, if we're sitting around a lot. That seems counterintuitive because you're not using up your energy. So it seems like, oh, that's going to give me more energy. I'm going to have more excess energy. It's the exact opposite. Research has shown that when you sit around, it starts to perpetuate this consistent pattern in your cells. And so instead of doing physical activity where that creates endorphins and creates more energy, it actually starts to sap your energy. The second thing is, if you have a lot of tension, sometimes maybe your life is really stressful right now. Maybe you have a hard time relaxing your muscles. Have you ever gone to get a massage or someone starts to massage your neck at some family event or something, and they go, whoa, your muscles are harder, your neck seems really stiff. There are a lot of reasons we have tension, and we live in a world where things are intense. There's a lot to do, there's a lot of stimulation, and so we end up getting tense and having a lot of stress. So we need to be aware of that so that we can do something about it. The third thing is we breathe really shallow. It is so important to breathe deeply. I'm going to share with you something that happened to me that made me realize how important this deep breathing is. I'm a singer. I love to do musical theater and acting and things like that. And so I was with my voice teacher, and she was trying to get me to do something with my voice and the music. And I was trying to do it, and it wasn't coming out right. And I was trying to understand. And I said, so at the back of your throat, does it feel like this? And I was kind of trying to describe. And she said, I've never really thought about it. And so she tried to explain it to me. And I said, at the back of your nose, does it feel like it's closing up? And I was just describing this thing that I was experiencing. And she said, I have been doing this for 30 years, and I have never heard anyone describe it like that. She said, I want you to go to this specialist. He's an ENT. He is phenomenal, and he specializes with vocalists. So I went to see this doctor, and he took an x-ray of my sinuses. And he's immediately, he looked at it and he said, no, this is not okay. And so what was happening was, in the back of your nose, way at the back of your nose, you have these things called turbinates. And if you were to make that snoring noise, like, no, I can do better than that. If you made that noise, then those are the things that are vibrating at the back of your nose. Well, normally they hang down and they look like a little punching bag. And all around it is all this air there at the back of your nose, and the breath goes through. Well, mine were so huge that they filled up the whole spot. I know, TMI. Yeah, this does not make me look very feminine and dainty. So this is the deal. Mine were so big that they were covering up the whole space. And in fact, on one side, no air was even getting through. And on the other side, it was very difficult for the air to get through. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, no wonder when I breathe in, when I go running, for example, I breathe in through my nose, and I had to try, it was a lot of effort to breathe in through my nose. But I didn't want to only breathe through my mouth as I'm running, because I know, I'm athletic. I've been in sports. I've had coaches. I know that you're supposed to breathe through your nose, exhale through your mouth in certain situations. So I'm trying to do that. But I would start to notice that when I would try to breathe out through my nose, it wouldn't, something would stop it. And I didn't know, but it was my turbinates like totally getting in the way and plastering up against. So what was happening was, in order to get breath out of my nose, what I had to do was, okay, I had to open that area up. So imagine that you are trying to make a yawn in your throat. You're making your throat widen, like make it big. Try doing that. You can make it big. Well, I had to do that at the back of my nose. You can actually do it. You like, now that you are trying it, I'm sure you can tell what I'm talking about. You can do that at the back of your nose. So in order to get air out, I had to do that and blow out. Well, so the doctor did a surgery, and he did it. It's a reduction surgery where they made my turbinates the right size. They took out the extra tissue, and I am not kidding you. I cannot tell you how unbelievable it was. It's seriously, even now, I feel like, oh my goodness, there's this huge gust of air every time I breathe through my nose. And you know what's interesting? I've never really had trouble sleeping, I thought. Well, I sleep the same, it seems like, but all of a sudden I'm waking up totally refreshed. I'm waking up with more energy. And I'm telling you, breathing is a big deal. I was actually with a breathing coach in a group class one time, and she was teaching us to breathe deeply. And she was explaining all the benefits. One of the things she taught me is that when you breathe in and out deeply, you know how sometimes you start to feel like you're going to hyperventilate, or you start to feel a little bit like lightheaded. She said the only time that happens is when you're not breathing out enough of the air. So you breathe in really deeply and you breathe out. And when you think you're done, breathe out just that little bit more. So breathing is a tool that I think we really don't know a lot about, but it's a really powerful thing. So throughout the day, just when you think of it, add a little extra breath or take a big deep breath, and you'll notice a difference, even if you only do it a few times throughout the day. The fourth thing is what we put in our body. We know this. The more unhealthy things we put in our body, the more unhealthy we treat it. The times, if we're eating too late at night, those kinds of things affect our body. And the fifth thing that we do that depletes the energy in our body is excess of noise, excess of lights, like lots of stimulation around us. So for example, if the area where you work has tons of things in it, lots of color, or it's cluttered, or it doesn't feel peaceful, that drains our energy. Well, what can you do about it? First of all, we can exercise. And you guys, I'm not talking about you have to go running a marathon. I'm talking about go on a walk. I'm talking about get up and move around. If you have an office job where you're sitting at a desk every day, get up, take some times where you go get a drink of water, go visit a couple of the other employees for a little bit, get up and move. You don't have to do very much, just go. And make sure when you do exercise, you're doing something you enjoy. Do something fun. I do this virtual reality workout. It is hardcore. It kicks my tush, and oh my goodness, it is so fun. It's like you can't wait to work out, and after the first exercise routine is over, you're thinking, do I have time for another one? I hope I can do another one. It is so fun. Find something you enjoy. The second thing is get more sleep, and make sure it's healthy kind of sleep. Make sure that you're getting into the deep REM sleep. There are watches that allow you to watch those indicators. There are coaches you can hire that will put the nodes on you while you're asleep and keep track of your sleep patterns. There are very inexpensive things you can do and things that cost more money, but get more sleep. The third thing is change your diet. And just do little. You'll start to notice the more you hang out with me. I'm not saying make a massive change overnight. I'm saying just do a little bit. Change a little bit this week. And whatever you decide to do for this challenge, just make a small change and just do it every single day and be aware of it. The fourth thing is stop taking so much medication. There might be medication that you need. I'm not saying get off your medication that you need. Work with your doctor on that. I'm not a doctor. But we are an over-medicated society. We use medicines to solve our problems instead of finding healthy solutions to take care of those things. If it's one of those, then stop taking so much medication. So just look at the medication you're taking, see if there's something you can do about that. The fifth thing you can do is relax. I know that sounds so simple, but I'll tell you this, sometimes it is hard, especially if you love life, if you love doing things. And I'm not talking about depressed. I'm depressed, so I'm not going to do anything. That's not relaxing. That's you being depressed. Make sure you choose a time that is time for you, something that you want to do that you're going to relax. It might be reading a book. It might be going on a walk. It might be calling a friend or calling your mom. It might be going to a movie with a friend. Whatever it is, take time to relax. It was so funny because one time I was with my son and we were living in China. My son was over there with us and we were out doing things. And we had planned that we would get back to our home by a certain time so that we could relax. We had a view overlooking the Pearl River in Guangzhou, and it was beautiful. We wanted to eat dinner out on the patio, and it was going to be a really nice night. But as we were out in the city, different things came up. We're like, oh, let's go see this. Oh, that's exciting. Oh, that's cool. And I am really good at living in the moment. And so it was super fun. And I was talking to my son about how I hadn't been taking the time for me and I wanted to get better at it. And so as we're spending all this time together throughout the day, he finally said, Mom, I know what your problem is. And my son and I are a lot alike, and he knows me really well. So he kind of knows how to talk to me to get me to pay attention. And that I want to be good at it. If it's something I'm going to do, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it well. And I'm going to find out who is the best at it and try to find out exactly what they do and do exactly what they're doing and just exceed, just really excel at it. So that's what I'm like about stuff. And he knows that. So he said that, and I'm like, okay, wait, what is my problem? And I was totally curious and ready to learn and ready to, go with it. And he said, you are good at this and this. And he started listing these things. He said, you're really good at all these things, but there's one thing that you are not very good at. And I thought, oh, what? Tell me, what am I not good at? Because I want to excel at it and get better. He said, you are horrible at relaxing. And I started laughing and I thought, you know what? He's totally right. And what was funny is the very next thought was, oh yeah, Well, you just watch because I am going to get good at relaxing. I am going to be an expert at relaxing. And I will tell you, it changed my life. I started making sure that I took time to sit and read. And the funny thing was, I love living life. I love achieving. I love doing my business. I love spending time with friends and doing relationship stuff. But I love being at home. I love reading a book just as much. The problem is all the excitement and all the things were piling up, and I would always do those and I wouldn't relax. Okay, so now let's talk about the reasons we get drained mentally. Okay, now let's talk about the reasons we get drained mentally. The first reason is hard conversations or hard situations in relationships. Maybe we have difficult relationships that we're dealing with. That is so emotionally draining, mentally draining. The second thing is we're doing mundane or repetitive tasks. When you do the same thing over and over and over, it is depleting mentally. And it's interesting because when people work in a situation where they're in a factory and they do assembly line work, when they're done with their day, they feel so depleted. It's not like they're excited to go out and do something else or excited to go exercise. They're just depleted. And it's not because they are physically depleted, they're mentally depleted. The third thing is focusing on problems. I know that it can feel comforting to talk about your problems, and there is an appropriate place for that. But if you keep reliving your problems over and over and over, and you have 20 or 30 different people that you have to tell the whole story to, and you now talk to a new person and you're like, well, they don't know the whole story, so now I got to tell the whole story again, and you're focusing on the problems, what happens is you become a blamer, you're assuming people's intentions. Here are a few things that if you are thinking these things or saying these things, then that's an indicator that you are assuming, blaming, accusing, and you're not taking responsibility for your own life. It's if you're thinking thoughts like this, well, they're just thinking this. Well, they should have this. Well, they just want to this. Well, they're just trying to, or the situation is, if you are making statements like this, you are in a situation where you're depleting yourself mentally. The fourth thing we do that depletes us mentally is isolation. When we isolate ourselves from other people, or we're struggling with something, we think, just leave me alone. I just need time. And needing time for you is okay. And there are healthy ways of doing that. Sometimes it's a healthy thing. But if you find you're constantly trying to avoid people, get away from people, that's something that's going to deplete you. So rather than avoiding and stepping back, maybe look at why am I feeling this way? Why do I not want to be around that person? Why am I trying to isolate? And deal with the problem? That is so much more energizing than avoiding it. And we know that sometimes isolation happens because we choose it, but sometimes it's not our choice. Look at what happened during the pandemic. There was a higher rate of suicides. There was a higher rate of depression, higher rate of anxiety, higher rate of people feeling unhappy. Why? Because isolation is depleting. The fifth thing that we do that depletes our mental energy is we worry too much, or we're pessimistic. Our mindset about what's happening in our life. Oh no, I'm worried about my son. I'm worried about my husband's job. I'm worried about what's happening with this relationship with my family, or what so-and-so is going to say. Stop. There are tools you can learn to train yourself to stop worrying and stop being pessimistic. Pessimism is not a positive trait, but someone who sees the problems so that they can help find solutions, that is a positive trait. Now, there's a slight difference, but there is a difference. So if you say, well, I'm a pessimist, as if that's a good thing, make sure that you are doing it in a way that is, I see the problems and I end up helping the situation because I recognize problems that we can try to address before there becomes an issue. So here we are, depleting our mental energy. Life happens. We can't control every relationship. We can't control what other people do, what other people say. Sometimes situations happen that we didn't plan on. So what do? Well, the first thing is do something fun. Make sure you're doing something fun at least every day. It might be talking with a friend. It might be going to play a sport. For me, when I want to do something fun, it depends on my mood. I might want to go read a book and be quiet, or I might want to go play pickleball or go play basketball. So it depends, but do something fun. The second thing is let go of your mistakes. We hang on to mistakes and beat ourselves up and go over and over and over what we should have done. Stop doing the should haves. The third thing is take a break from toxic people or toxic situations. You have a choice. I don't care if it's your job. I don't care if it's people in your life, in your relationships. If you have a toxic situation, it is okay to step aside. Now, I might be having a situation with my husband, Roger, and I'm really upset with him and we are not okay. That doesn't mean I'm going to say, okay, we're done. That's it. That's not what happens. I might say, you know what? If you're going to talk like that, I don't want to talk right now. Or it might be that I'm talking in a way that I shouldn't. What can I do? I can say, you know what? I need some time. If we talk right now, I'm not going to be nice. Give me an hour. There are so many different ways that you can handle it, and you can see there are different levels. If someone is extremely toxic and they are abusive, then you need to stay away from that person. Find a way to get out of that situation, and you can. You absolutely can. The fourth thing you can do to recharge your mental energy is pray. It's something so simple, but it's beautiful and it really recharges you. It's almost like a vocal journal entry. You're able to talk with someone that you trust and it brings peace. Some people like to meditate. Some people like to pray, but take time to do those things. And the fifth thing is be honest about what you've achieved. We tend to look at where we are right now, and then we look at where we want to be. This is my goal. And we measure against the goal. We measure forward and go, wait a minute. I see all the ways that I'm not where I should be. I don't measure up yet. Even if we're excited about the goal, it can be a problem that we're measuring forward. What I want you to do is I want you to measure backward. I want you to measure from where you are to where you started. Look at where you started and see the difference between where you are now and where you started. There's a book about this. It's called The Gap in the Gain. It was written by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It is a phenomenal book. And the entire book is about how we measure forward instead of measuring backward. And the correct way to measure is to measure backward. The measuring should be backward. The vision should be forward. I promised you that I would give you a little nugget that is the most powerful thing that you can do. And it is this: to give yourself awareness. Once you are aware of your breathing, all of a sudden you start noticing it throughout the day and you start breathing deeply several times a day. Once you're aware of what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, it is so much easier to make a tiny little step that makes a difference. So what I'm going to work on this week, you can probably guess, I'm going to work on breathing deeply because of what just recently happened with my sinuses. I'm super excited about it. I'm excited that I can finally breathe. And so I'm going to really work on breathing deeply. And especially when I'm feeling stressed or I have a lot to do, I'm going to take a big breath, and not just a breath like, oh, calm down. It's more for health. Like my body needs air. I'm going to get my lungs as much air as I can and then breathe that out. So that's going to be mine. What's going to be yours? Tell me what it is. Put it in the comments. I'm excited to hear, and I am going to read them. So join me in this challenge this week. It's Momentum Monday. And remember, I don't want you to just think different. I want you to be different.